that build a good business. Don't try to build a business to exit.
Do I want to start another business? Because to be honest, running a business takes quite a toll on your life.
Yeah.
And I don't think we realized it till we exited the business as well.
Like an e-commerce website that requires me to do a Zoom call before I place the order. Wow. Finally, I've heard complaints already about Arjun. Arjun, really, you need to grow up.
Brand, as Jeff Bezos said, it is what people talk about you when you're not in the room, right?
Do you have extra pajamas?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what's enriching or rewarding is not putting it together. It's about hearing feedback back from people.
Here, I'm sitting here at their home, not had dinner, and Hi guys, welcome back to Coffee and Startups, and today we have another couple guest here right now. We've had one of them before on our podcast before, and you know, it was one of those moments where I was like, I know I'm going to get very high value delivered in this one. And that one episode wasn't enough, honestly, it wasn't enough. And I'd mentioned precisely to Arjun, either we do a long one or we do two pieces. Arjun was kind enough to say, why not? And this time I raised my demand, I raised my ask and said, I need the wife too. Like, I need your partner too. I need the COO too. And they were like, no, let me ask with her. And thank you so much, Trisha, for coming in.
She's the tougher guest to get.
I know. So I feel very privileged. So, okay. But I'm right now sitting here in Mahalakshmi at their place. And I'm like, I've stepped into this place and it looked like a beautiful place. So first, let me, congratulate you on the new house.
Thank you.
It looks phenomenal. And it shows the signs of someone's achieved success. So I'm really glad, by the way, you made time. I know that you have plans, you're going to travel, and finally, I've heard complaints already about Arjun. Arjun, really, you need to grow up. Start giving time to your family. And we understand that you're passionate about this space of D2C and many more, I'm sure. But you have responsibilities.
Yeah,
you don't
absolutely.
need a random stranger to come in and school you on it.
I'm heading for a trip, and while we were having dinner, Trisha looked at my phone and saw 650, 400 WhatsApps. So I'm going to Maldives to clear out my WhatsApp.
Wow. This is not acceptable, honestly.
It's just not acceptable. It's given me tension now that I've seen that 654.
Some people tell me I'm a decent counselor. I've never tried the couples one, but this one I could give a shot. Since you're the first clients, I could take it for free. But I think for people, I think I like to introduce you guys a little formally. I won't make it a long formal one, but you guys have, had a phenomenal journey very recently, and Dr. Vaidya's is now known to be the biggest online e-commerce brand in Ayurveda space. It's not an easy feat. You started this back then when e-com D2C brands, especially Ayurveda brands, were definitely not the thing. You were on that early cusp of that wave, and to be able to have that confidence and faith to put in and say that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to define this new category, I think that's phenomenal. And a lot of that has been said in numbers now, not just in stories. I'm sure you have a lot of stories to tell, but we have got numbers to back it up. You grew phenomenally, and you've also been able to, sell it off now. You've had an amazing exit to a much bigger group, and that's definitely very rare. You guys know that you're sitting on a very rare opportunity here at the right time in this country when there are so many entrepreneurs coming in, especially for D2C. I think that means a lot to have people like you who are so approachable and you want to give back fully. And people who know you, and I've known you for a while, I think I can very confidently say that, if I'm talking to Arjun, I know that beyond this moment, he doesn't seek anything else. Right? And I'm meeting you for the first time. I'm actually meeting you also for the first time, surprisingly. All that feels like, I know Arjun. Yeah, it's been a while. He's a friend.
I can't believe that.
Right? It's all very weird. And that hit me when we just shook hands.
Yeah.
That's when it hit me. Oh, we've never met. Right? And I feel almost at home. Also because I'm a shameless extrovert. So I feel at home at most places. So, and you've been very warm. You've given us all the freedom, all the space to cover up here. So thank you again for making this time. And I know we've got our limited 45 minutes here today. So I want to jump right in, right? I'm sure you had your celebrations and you're planning and packing and stuff, but I want to move in and get into the topic for the day, which is, as a D2C brand, if I were to start off tomorrow, right? And I came to you as a clueless guy, that, hey, I've got this idea. And I want to make it big. I want to have an exit like you, maybe. Or, you know, maybe I'm arrogant and I say that, at least 10x more. Can you take me there, right? So I want to have that as the theme for the day.
Sure.
And specifically for people who are starting off in D2C, you know, why don't you start off by giving a sense of what are you guys up to right now? And then we move on to this section where, because I know you're doing this essentially, and I'm trying to condense all of that into 45 minutes and deliver, make it a very high value package for people who are like starting off here.
We get asked a lot about how to exit a business, and I think that's the first misconception that I'll try to dispel. Build a good business. Don't try to build a business to exit. You'll get various opportunities along the way, and take the right opportunity for you and exit, IPO, strategic sale, continue to run for the rest of your life like my dad is. You could choose various opportunities or options. Look, I think for both of us after the exit, we had the good fortune of being able to have time to reflect.
Yeah.
And my dad said that you guys have something that nobody else has. Right? At the age of 29 or 30, you can sit back, stop, reflect, and then move forward. So use this time very wisely. We had grand plans of going to London and spending 6 months in Europe. Second wave hit, all of them went to...
Wow, what a coincidence. Celebration
went away.
time spent in COVID.
So we were fortunate at least to go outside of Bombay to our home in Alibag and spend about 2 months there and reflect on what life was from here for us, right? And I think initially it was just about, okay, we've had this exit now. There are lots of people who ask these existential questions, right? Like, how do you build a D2C business? What's Shopify? What's WooCommerce? How do you do performance marketing, etc. All of that. And so that's what we spent time doing. We said, hey, we have all of these learnings. Can we condense it into a playbook that can help founders? Because after we exited, hundreds of founders was messaging us very specific different questions. And fine, it's scalable to message them, but at some point it goes to a point which is not scalable. And so you need to find a way to help. And that's something very passionate about, giving back to the ecosystem, but in a scalable manner. So started giving time pro bono to founders, then started investing as angels. And we've done sort of 75 plus investments now as angels. And with this realized that we need to also find a way to solve for this. So we invested in a company started by our friend Vaibhav Sisinti called Growth School.
Okay.
And we started then teaching our playbook, our D2C playbook through this platform. And that was really fun. With that, I also started the podcast that I run, Direct to a Billion Consumers. And all of this then became our objective in life to give back to the community. And we built one brand. Can we enable 1,000 brands through the various things we do? And then I got connected to the folks at Volinvest. Obviously, Volinvest is one of the largest consumer sector investors in the world. It's a single LP evergreen fund structure based out of Belgium. And they've been investing in India for the last 10 years, but at the growth equity, Series B and up. And they wanted to start venture investing, a venture investing business. Well, the definition of early is different, but more pre-Series A, Series A investments, $1 to $5 million investments. And they wanted an ex-founder to lead this strategy who's built and sold a business, who's below the age of 40. I really like the idea because this is a global strategy. It's something that we're starting across India, US and Europe. And just thinking of a VC fund that's investing in sort of reasonably early stage, backed and run by only ex-founders, also sponsored by Volinvest, just seemed like something that I'd never seen before and seemed super interesting. So I got to know them, really liked them. And since December last year, I'm now running the India venture investing business for Volinvest. And yeah, it's been a fun ride.
Amazing. So we heard about Arjun and what he's been up to. And while you shared a part of that journey together, I want to know, what have you been up to?
So unlike Arjun, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do next. I wanted to actually, we had a very focused lens on Ayurveda, right, while we were building it. And we wanted to look outside, what are the opportunities, what are the gaps? Do I want to start another business? Because to be honest, running a business, it takes quite a toll on your life.
Yeah.
And I don't think we realized it till we exited the business as well. So while we did the course together, while we angel invest together, I started working as a consultant or an advisor to multiple businesses to kind of also see what the opportunities are, what the models are. So I work with a fund. I was working with one of the Thrasio models to acquire businesses, helping a couple of larger offline businesses actually go online, helping our family business, which we didn't have time for before, in the luxury jewelry space to actually come on digital, which took some time to convince, but I think
It took you time to convince after this?
No, it took the...
If you could sell herbs online...
But it's...
Yeah, but a 10 lakh piece of jewelry.
Oh, so you were still a 10 lakh
piece. It's
okay.
a very different...
Valid concerns, valid concerns.
It's a very different, also keep putting your designs out there. There are different concerns that come with it, right?
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, do you reach the right customer? You know, how do you position your brand, which has been a brand for 40 years? So there were many... It was fun challenges because I got to look at literally selling a 700 rupee product and then selling a 7 lakh rupee product.
Wow.
So I've been doing that a lot. Got to understand a lot of the landscape outside Ayurveda and health and wellness, right? What's working, what's not working, what are the challenges people face. And I think eventually, I don't know when, I keep asking myself this question, and I think next year is definitely the year where I have to give myself a deadline that I do want to start my own thing again.
Again? You feel that urge already?
First time said on a public platform.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, first time guys, exclusive.
I have this idea note that I keep jotting down my ideas and discussing it with Arjun, and I think most of them we've eliminated already, but there are a few left on it, so I'm hoping that something materializes. But yeah, I miss building a business. I miss building a brand. I think I've got a nice break. I would have got a nice break also from the stress of it all. And I think I'll be more prepared.
There's a charm to that stress though. There's a charm to it.
I don't know how much, but
no wonder you're being seduced by another business.
I think I'll be more prepared, I think. And I think I would definitely run it differently.
Yeah.
I don't think I would run it the way we were running our last business. There's no way I would run it like that.
I'm sure it must be a lot of... would it be fair to say that a lot of jugaad must have happened in the back end?
No,
or not?
Not that only,
Any of you
right?
process oriented, super process oriented?
I am very process oriented, but not that. I think when we were younger is one thing, to be honest.
You're still young, but okay.
Younger. Hence I said younger. I'm still young, I agree.
Inexperienced also.
Inexperienced.
No wonder.
We didn't have anything known as a work-life balance. And I've got to experience that now. And I hope second time around I will be able to do a better job with that.
Correct.
So I mean more like that, right? We hired senior people later on. I would have hired that. Next time around, I would do that a little better.
Correct.
So we made many mistakes, right? Like any business. So I'm sure I'll make many more also. But at least try and not make the same ones again.
Wow. Awesome. So now that we know, what have you guys been up to? I think a common thing that you share is that you're out there interacting with a lot of D2C founders.
Yeah.
As a common denominator, right? And even though you've been in the Ayurveda and health and supplement as a domain, I want to understand how does your experience of D2C in Ayurveda translate to, let's say, something like what you mentioned, jewelry? What is remarkably different and what is remarkably same? I want to see the highlights of this.
Yeah, look, I think what's remarkably same is that you're using the same channel to engage with the consumers. And so the sort of storefront is still a website. The customer acquisition channels are still digitally enabled. The entire stack of engaging with a customer, bringing customer to the website, the funnel, managing the website,
Fair enough.
SEO, conversion friendliness, etc. That's all the same, right? What's fundamentally different is I was selling a 720 rupee AOV product or sort of 200, 300 rupees per product, and then bundle together my AOV at Dr. Vaidya to 720 rupees. And now you say that I want to sell a 10 lakh rupee product, right? And so the experience, the type of customer, the way you engage with the customer, what you do to complete the conversion, right? In Dr. Vaidya's, it was just ad or direct organic traffic, website, some information, some video, click and buy. And in a luxury jewelry business, it's more like, okay, get the customer, use an Instagram post, reels, some amount of marketing, bring them to your website, then they WhatsApp you, then maybe a Zoom call, then they come to your store once or twice and then buy, because obviously it's a very, very large purchase, large volume. And so you need to be 100% sure about it, right? But while the premise remains the same and the strategy remains the same, the customer persona, the engagement,
that changes
structure,
dramatically.
and the eventual conversion point, I think those are...
Like an e-commerce website that requires me to do a Zoom call before I place the order. Wow. That's a fundamental first principle problem solving of building trust. And it's like your own KYC.
It's like buying a home, right?
And building that trust.
Like there are enough platforms that you can look at classifieds and search homes and all of those things, but you won't buy.
Also, this entire process is extremely assisted. Am I right? One is independent. Even supplements, for that matter, are semi-assisted because someone's recommended either a doctor or a friend or whoever.
We had a free doctor consultation available.
You had that.
At Dr. Vaidya's, and we saw a 30% increase in average order value when a customer did the consult, because they believed in what we were saying a little bit more. A doctor had sort of explained to them something more. There was a higher degree of trust, right?
Makes perfect sense. So yeah, I think that makes sense that this entire there's a bit of this experience that remains the exact same, and there's a bit that's exactly not the same. So I think you've now moved to this end of spectrum where you're also challenging yourself. Okay, what can I do to solve these new problems that have arisen? And just the idea that there is someone doing a Zoom call before an e-commerce purchase, of course, makes sense for jewelry and maybe high value goods. Now that you say it, but it's not easy for someone to like think of it and replicate in that way. You went ground up. How does a customer come and interact at my store, right?
Yeah.
How do I show them stuff? Then how do I talk to them? How do I gauge them? Like you probably went through that journey.
And also, actually, like the reason we started thinking about this was after we sold the business, we had no office. So my dad just gave us a conference room in his office and said, okay, work out of here, right? So we started going there every day and we started watching customers walk in. We started spending time with the team, understanding their pain points.
You had a storefront, or was it like a more back office?
No, there is a store. There is a physical store in Bombay and Delhi. So we were sitting in the office adjacent to the store in Bombay. And so we were observing everything every day, right?
Sense.
And understanding from the team how to do it. This is how it happens offline. How can that be translated online while still maintaining the quality of the experience, the premiumness of the brand? Because for them, experience is very important, right? And it can't be reduced or made worse if a customer goes online.
Correct. In fact, it has to add something.
Yeah.
Apart from the ease and accessibility of something, it has to be more than that. Because if it compromises on any other area, the sensitivity in a high value purchase is just too high. So, okay, let's conclude this with what numbers are we looking at? Like what transformation were you able to bring at? What percentage growth did you see this business and everything?
So honestly, without giving too many numbers out there, the business it was a new business vertical we created.
Right.
Because it was a complete offline business earlier that was physical retail plus exhibitions, right? So we started it from scratch. It took us time to convince the sales team also, right? Because converting a customer is not going to happen in one day.
Team must be jittery.
No,
for a while and
they
thought of
weren't
this.
jittery. It was more about, is it actually going to convert? Can I actually convince someone?
Will it actually work?
Yes, it's more about that, right? Because they've also built relationships over years, which completely makes sense. So, and this was also during pandemic, right? So there was an opportunity also because people weren't coming physically to the store as much. Right now, I've moved to a time where a year later, we've grown really well in terms of revenue coming in terms of reach. In terms of when we go to exhibitions, our offline events are also supported purely because people are like, oh, we follow you on Instagram, we know this, we know that. But
the recall matters a lot.
Huge recall value. But more than that, our sales team now from being like, do I really want to be in charge of online is like, can I?
Wow, that's a transformation.
That's a good transformation because we've been able to tap places where we know there's potential of buyers. but we can't do so many physical stores there, right? Because there's a cost, time, effort to that as well. So yeah, I mean, I think given that next year we were given whatever budget we want because we did well in year one, I think it's exciting.
So it's your father-in-law's business, right?
Yes.
And your dad's
Father-in-law
business.
Yeah.
So you just said how much budget we get. Right? I mean, you can work this out.
No, but it's a professional.
I know.
Still has to be a budget. You still have to be accountable for it, right?
I wanted to throw like a Baap Ka Paisa dialogue, but I just realized it's completely misplaced. I got to still say it. No, fair enough. Okay, so now that we've spoken about, you know, this spectrum of what D2C looks like in certain different contexts, I have a lot of D2C friends, and
so you're asking for a friend.
So I always ask for a friend. I have no plans
what
to
a
start.
good friend.
Right, yeah. So I genuinely have real D2C friends. I like to believe they're real friends. But they are in two different spaces. Like, two of them are pretty close. One is in a premium home furnishing space. And they were more into like, I want to only sell the high-end, great furnishing stuff. Primarily bed sheets, curtains and covers and so on. That brand's called Linen Walas, and they have their factory set up in Jaipur. So they've been trying to crack this online thing. They were getting fairly good numbers, very profitable business, right? But the next level of growth wasn't being unlocked. So we met up on coffee a few times, and I figured out that, you know what, I used to run the home and furnishing department at Meesho. And I had a very clear insight on Indian market. When I say Indian, Bharat market, right? So I knew that I was selling 300 rupee bed sheets there. 500 was like, oh, so expensive, right? That was the market I was dealing with. And there is this guy whose prices start from 1100, right? So we had a very good chat, and I said, you know what, why don't you double down on global market? He had some global sales. And as soon as he doubled down, increased his focus, inventory availability and TAT and stuff, the sales there have gone like within a month 2.5x. He's now thinking of like, India business, tum sambhal lo koi aur, mujhe to global mein maza aa raha hai. So this is one example of the kind of value that can be unlocked with a certain degree of clarity that you guys are bringing in, right? I'm not even an expert in D2C, and just from fundamental marketing, branding concepts and distribution concepts, I was able to crack this. And now beyond this, I'm like, I'm not sure if I can get you the next level of D2C growth. You guys are doing this day in, day out, right? I want to understand if there is a certain framework that you guys have built and you've been taking these. Is there one course or there are multiple?
Just one.
One course, right? It's like a master
more,
course.
But it'll be
okay.
It'll be out soon.
Cool. So you have this course with Growth School, right?
Correct.
And it's been started by Web of Sisinthi.
Yeah.
Right. And there you've had it a proper cohort system and you go in depth. I want to get a sense of what that, like if I were to get a crash course on it,
yeah,
right? How would you tell me about the framework? Let's say, what are the key pillars that you think D2C has from the founder and market perspective? How does one position and so on? There are so many questions out there. There are so many moving parts. How do you simplify it and articulate it for people like me to understand it simply and probably build our
we'll try to put 8 weeks in 8 minutes. Look,
Yeah.
I think
I'll give you 18 minutes.
yeah, there are sort of, if you think about it, there are 8 parts to the entire D2C flywheel that we tried to sprint to 8
What's a
modules.
flywheel?
The entire sort of gamut of things you need to do to get a D2C business flying or moving. And I think what's very important today, which wasn't the case when I started, was that while there is lots more customers willing to shop online, there are also lots more brands selling online. So the competition is much higher, which means that you need to have your basics in place today, because if you don't, there are 10 guys who do, and they'll give you a run for your money, right? So I think I'll break it up into the 8 various modules, and I teach 1, 2, 3, and 8. Trisha teaches 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Very interesting.
So we'll try to talk through the way we teach them, right?
Awesome.
So I think the first part of the conversation is, hey, why D2C, right? why does my business really need to be online? What's the power of an online business? What's the size of the market? And I think all of this, asking yourself these existential questions, boils down to what does my overall P&L or unit economics look, right? So I have...
And not even like a business goal here? I mean, overall.
That
you start
comes
with the
much
P&L,
later,
literally
right?
P&L.
No, it comes with a unit level P&L, not a business P&L.
I see.
You got it. Why do we ask this question early on, right? Because if you're selling detergent online, the unit economics will probably not make sense. If you're selling drinks online, the unit economics will probably not make sense. Why? Because they're high volume, low value products. And so the logistics cost per unit is sometimes even higher than the price of the unit, right? And so it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So we make our friends put together per unit, per order P&L, which means what's the MRP of the product, what's the discount you'll offer, what's the GST, and then finally what's the net revenue you get. On that, what's your gross margin, right? So what's your cost of goods sold?
You start literally on the numbers.
Exactly, because it has to make sense fundamentally, right?
Right.
What's the gross margin? So what do you make as contribution margin? Then you have 3 levers below that, right, which you have to manage. One is logistics. And so you get a rough logistics P&L basis the number of grams of the product, etc. all of that. Second is packaging, like the courier bags, the boxes, and the payment gateway charges, right? Those are also pretty self-explanatory, easy to find out.
So these are the heads of costs that we need to really cover. And then the third one,
which we don't have an answer to, but you get a semblance of what would make sense, is your customer acquisition cost. So how much marketing you spend per order to acquire that customer. This you can leave blank for now, and then you see what's left to know or train your mind that, hey, by the way, if I'm selling a 700 rupee product with a 50% gross margin, I have 350 rupees, assuming that you've removed GST, etc., all of that and discounts. I have 350 rupees. My logistics will be about 80 rupees, and my packaging plus payment gateway charges will be about 100 rupees, right? 20 rupees.
Okay.
So I have 250 rupees left. I have to ensure I acquire a customer in less than 250 rupees or 250 rupees to break even on my first order, right? That's the ballpark infrastructure.
So it has to make sense on paper in a reasonably buffered manner, right? Because you can't predict all of the costs and so on.
It has to reasonably make sense to work, right?
Yeah, you can't have like 3 rupees left for your gross profit.
A product which costs 200 rupees with a 50% gross margin, 100 rupees, and the logistics cost itself to deliver that product is 100 rupees. Then you have no chance for packaging, payment gateway, and you have no chance for customer acquisition cost, right? So that business model will not make sense.
Makes sense.
Right? So we get past that, the unit economics. Then we work on product, right?
This is the second pillar.
This is the second module.
Okay.
So why is this a problem? What is my solution? And why do I have a right to win in this solution, right? So the reason I say why do I have a right to win, Arjun Vaidya had a right to win in Ayurvedic products because he had 150 years of family legacy. Arjun Vaidya believed there were problems to be solved in space. And he could solve with drones, but he's not an engineer. And so he can't make drones, right? So he doesn't have a right to win. So you have to be...
So what makes you the best positioned
to solve that
founder, honestly?
Founder, team, infrastructure, etc. And then from there, the entire product life cycle, right? So developing the product, testing it out on customers, doing focus groups, manufacturing a pilot batch of the product, branding the product, packaging the product, putting the pilot batch out into market, getting the trademarks or IP for the product, getting customer feedback, and then finally launching the product. And then the entire infrastructure or thing you have to think about, which is not talked about enough at all. After you launch the product, what happens, right? So you get customer feedback, you take adverse event reporting, you iterate on the product, you keep talking to customers. All of that is what we teach in the second module, which is product. So you launch this product, you get the information, and you iterate on the product eventually by getting customer feedback. Then the third module is brand, right? And what we teach in this module is, and what I'm most passionate about, my favorite module actually, is that a brand is not a logo. It's equivalent to a being, right? And so here we teach mission, vision, brand qualities, tone of voice, personality, customer persona, and then eventually moving to a brand style guide, visual style guide, which is the logo and
You go into that detail in this course?
to the creation of the visual style guide, and then after that going into further detail saying, hey, by the way, you have this visual style guide, now implement it across your business. Whether it's your store or your website or your communication, what you say on WhatsApp, your LinkedIn page, your Facebook page, your t-shirts, you have to implement it across the brand. And then I like to push founders to wear the brand on the sleeve and represent their brand as well.
You're an advocate of that?
I'm a big advocate of that. I think that, look, until you have money to do ATL advertising, you have to be the ATL advertising, right? So I used to wear a Dr. Vaidya shirt or t-shirt on every flight that I went on, and people would, eventually the brand started becoming bigger. People ask me, hey, are you from this brand? Do you know about this product? Can I get this product in my pharmacy? A guy sitting next to me was like, can I get this product in my pharmacy in XYZ location?
He basically had no idea about you except the fact that you were some Dr. Vaidya.
He knew the logo because he showed me on his phone an ad. And he said, I've heard this product is really good. Can you get it sent to me? And then I told him I'm the founder, etc.
On this, I'd like to ask you one specific question. You mentioned that the entire journey of how do you kind of define the brand, design the brand, and there are so many steps around it, from the mission to the storytelling, visual and verbal storytelling, the tone, everything. So that's quite a lot of depth. I want to actually get your definition of, from both of you actually, what does a brand mean in the first place? It's not a very well understood term. There are so many definitions that float around, and I would love to know, how do you see what brand is?
Brand, as Jeff Bezos said, it is what people talk about you when you're not in the room, right? It's a feeling, it's a personality. And I think the best brands actually are those that are something for some people and not everything for everyone.
Got it.
And I think today's brands actually are not just about how and what, but they're also about why. They have a reason for being, right? So for me, that's what a brand is. And I think the best brands actually always remain in your mind as standing for something or meaning something.
Got it.
That's more than just a logo or a product.
Got it. Trisha, do you have a different take on this?
No, I actually can't even add to it. Brand expert sitting here, that's what he managed also at Dr. Vaidya. So I completely agree.
Topic of what brand is something that brand is literally my favorite topic personally, and that's why I was a little bit more curious. And yes, I understand the definition you said, and tell me if this nuance is there or not. So what you mentioned is the proper definition of brand is what people feel when they look at you, think about you, and that's why when you're not in the room, what are they saying about you? These are all representations of the same idea. That how do they see you as, what do you stand up for? You mentioned these things. There's one more interesting definition I heard, and which clicked very well to me. And tell me, if this makes sense. I want to get your opinion on this. This is what I understood from it. So brand is like a shortcut to making a purchasing decision.
Yeah. I think
this takes away the emotional angle in a way, because decision making is always emotional. So decision making is happening in this definition.
So it's like this t-shirt I'm wearing, right? It's a plain red t-shirt, but it has that word boss on it. And so I probably pay 10x of the price of this t-shirt for this t-shirt, right? And that's the shortcut that
now that you tell it's 10x, people in the comments are going to be like, 10x for the same t-shirt.
But really, if you think about anything you wear, right? Why are these pants costing what they're costing, or these shoes costing what they're costing? There's probably a brand behind it which makes me pay 2x, 3x, 5x.
It's a way for you to also wear your values.
Exactly.
Literally wear your values when you're wearing this.
Absolutely.
But do you think it's a valid definition? It's a shortcut to purchasing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It almost sounds like a corporate when I define shortcut to purchasing decision.
Yeah, but it makes sense.
It makes sense,
total
right?
sense. It makes total sense.
So, and as soon as I heard this, I started applying, when did I look for brands and when did I not look for brands? When I'm standing in let's say, I need to quickly get a scissor. I don't have one. I'll get to the nearest shop, get the first scissor, size dekh lunga, fit ho raha hai kya?
Yeah.
Right? It will be very weird if someone builds a brand only in scissors, let's say. There are stationary brands, right? But only in scissors, it sounds like a weird thing, right? Because it's...
But maybe in America it'll get built, who knows?
Americans have built whatever you can imagine. This is how I feel, especially in brands. They're I'm blown away by how
Yeah.
such geniuses they are. This is something I can't stop praising. I think they've cracked this human psychology, consumer psychology. So such a beautiful depth. That's another matter, that it's not always to the, in the favor of people who are supposed to be beneficiaries. That's another completely different matter.
But look, so we talked about the generalized parts of D2C, right? The big, broad aspects. But I think none of this is possible without then the actual day-to-day functioning, operations and building of the business. And that's what Trisha used to do. So we'll let her.
So we have covered 3 modules here right now, right? And third one was brand. So yes.
Yeah. So I think the other fourth one is, I'm going to go D2C first. So if you actually sell on your own website, right? The best way to explain it is, if we sell offline, we care about how the merchandise is, the experience of the store, how it looks. Similarly, you're trying to give that to someone typically in India on your mobile phone, right? With a mobile website. So how does your store look? How does your brand that we've spoken about right now, how does that look on the website? How user-friendly or easy is it for someone to learn about your product, purchase, actually, and ask about a product, right?
Okay.
So
that whole experience. One is aesthetically appealing, but the second thing is also that, is it easy to purchase, especially if you're an e-commerce site.
What does easy to purchase in e-commerce mean? Sorry.
Not too many clicks away.
That way, okay.
Not too much scrolling up and
Got
down.
it.
Easy for a person to know, right? So there are small hacks to know where your add to cart button should be, what your checkout should look like, all of those things as well. And the other thing is, through your website, that's the first, after the person has seen an ad or come through Google or come through organic search to your website, that's their first experience and interaction with your brand. So you need to build that trust factor, right? Is your brand consistent throughout? Does it look like a mom and pop shop, or does it look like a brand that you can actually trust? Do you put enough information out there to build that trust in a consumer? Because that's where your impulse purchase will actually convert or not convert. So you'll see most new brands will have very high bounce rates on their website. That's because maybe many of these basic things aren't done. Right? What is a platform that you should use? Is it loading properly for a customer? Do they have to wait too much time? No one has a patience. That's the truth in today's day and age. Another big mistake people make is looking at, a beautiful desktop because it's easier and you're on your laptop, but actually your customer is viewing it on your mobile. So, you know,
so you go into this detail.
You have to, right? Because that's your representation, closest representation to a physical offline retail store. So I think website is extremely important, and then looking at data on your website of how people are interacting. So we used to actually have recordings on our website, which most e-commerce companies would also have, to actually see where are customers dropping off, where are they having problems. Because you build
Is this a heat map thing?
Heat map, exactly.
I love that concept, yeah.
Because otherwise you assume many things in your website. Data tells you the truth. Right? I may think this button is perfect, but my data is telling me this is confusing a consumer, right? So a lot of that, I think the website becomes extremely important. The fifth module, I think, is related to your actually acquiring your customers. So what is the channel? Facebook, Google, there used to be TikTok. Unlike TikTok now, there are things like Roposo, Chingari, ShareChat, many of them have come into place, right? How do you actually acquire consumers? I think this is also changing with time. What type of ads work for you? Who is your audience that you need to target? Who is your TG, right? Or your target audience, or your profile of your customer? What do you think they shop for? What do you think they are interested in? Without going too niche, but not going too broad that you get clutter on your website as well, right? Tomorrow it's not relevant to show, maybe to show Arjun something related to the kitchen or house. It's not relevant. He has no interest in that, and his digital footprint doesn't show any interest in that, right? So making sure that you don't waste your precious money or capital that everyone has also. And again, capturing data. The biggest problem I have when I see D2C brands is like, okay, how do I reach 100 orders a day? Right. Or I want a 5x ROAS. I want a 7x ROAS. Things take time. It took us, in all honesty, over 18 months to understand who our customer was. Now D2C brands do it in 3 to 6 months, right? That's changed. We were also very naive, made many mistakes.
You're saying this particular type of data is one is your imagined target audience.
Yes.
Like who you think will like most, and then you look at the data and say, oh, who's actually buying most?
Yeah.
That's what you're highlighting here.
Huge. It's a huge part of it as well.
Right.
And you just get smarter, right? Your data becomes smarter. The more you build, the more you understand your customer. So I think the whole acquisition channel is very important.
Do you sit down and literally teach them how
We
to
go
run these
into
ads?
everything.
What is good copywriting? What is good design?
So
Are
see,
we getting into that detail?
We do get into that detail.
Wow.
It's copywriting and all again all feeds into what Arjun said about brand.
Correct.
It all has to come into that.
Correct.
Right? So for example, for us at Dr. Vaidya's, you do a lot of A/B testing. We did A/B testing to say Devanagari ads, English ads, Hinglish ads. What worked best for us was Hinglish.
Wow.
Right? We learned also that we were making a mistake, that our ads were in Devanagari and we were taking a person to an English landing page. So we had to change that as well. That if I'm showing an ad to someone in Devanagari, they need to be taken to a Devanagari script website. All of these things. We talked to you about the different types of ads on Facebook, Google. How do you start? What is a budget to start
Amazing.
with? How do you go into
I get
that?
it. I get it. So this was our 6th.
No, we're
module.
on fifth. We're on fifth at the moment.
Got it.
And
Acquisition.
acquisition is first time acquisition, and then there's retention. Which is the gold mine, whereas actually where you will make your money, right? Because your margins should be higher in terms of your customer acquisition cost being lower. If you go back to Arjun's unit economics that he explained, how do you make sure that the customer comes back and buys your product? Think about what we spoke about, that you get bombarded these days with brands. How do you repeat? It's your job as a brand, according to me, to remind the customer at the right time when they should rebuy.
And typically, where do you see brands going wrong in their approach to retention?
They don't follow up at the right time.
They don't follow up at the right time.
It's a simple thing, right? If I have bought a shampoo that lasts me a month,
Oh, something as simple as that.
it's very simple.
On the 25th day, you should reach
You
out.
know the life of your product essentially. If it's a
Approximate
shampoo, you know the
how
1
many-
to 2 months, whatever.
You know how long you use it for. You know how long it takes to deliver.
Interesting.
So you need to backward calculate
Simple
it.
insight actually from lots of customer calls we do at Dr. Vaidya's. When you make that call, you realize lots of customers not even open the product.
Yeah.
So that call is a reminder for them to open the product. If they don't open the
Interesting.
product,
That
they'll
we
never
would
buy the
have
product
never
again.
thought of.
Yeah.
I have actually a couple of these, supplements I'd ordered, and they're all very well packed.
So for us, we realize that we need to therefore, when we actually send a product after delivery, I think it was 24 hours of delivery of the product.
Always follow up.
No, we would actually send them a video in Hindi and English to show how do you use the product.
Oh wow!
Because even though it's written on your package, even if you put an insert, that doesn't matter.
I'm yet to come across a brand who does that. By the way, I've ordered from a lot of
You
D2C
will
direct
see
websites.
a decent
I'm
amount.
sure some people must be doing it.
You'll now get
But
like a
it's
video on
not
your WhatsApp.
common.
Video
It's
on your
not
WhatsApp.
common.
I'm
That
just
I
seeing
can
that.
say.
So it's a whole journey, right? From the time I've bought the product, how do I remind the customer about my brand without annoying them?
And probably also listen to them if something went wrong. This is
Too
your
much.
opportunity. The follow-up opens up that channel.
Feedback loop.
Feedback is very important. That's the fifth.
Got it.
The sixth is your whole marketplace.
6th was retention.
No, fifth.
so acquisition,
right?
retention is one module for
acquisition,
us?
yeah, because
Got it.
your first time acquisition and then your second time, right?
Understood.
Purchase. So that's all related to acquisition. Then the sixth one would be related to your marketplace. So how do I represent my brand selling on your
Amazons and Flipkarts
Amazon,
of the world.
Flipkarts, Meeshos of the world, Creds of the world, right? Trails of the world. Now there are many different ways that are coming up. So how do I represent that? What is the right way in terms of keyword research, imagery, title? You know, that you are not going to have reviews when you start out. That's just the fact. How do you build that in a unique way? How do you advertise on these platforms? The biggest issue that brands don't realize is, again, the importance of actually calculating your unit economics for a marketplace. Same way how you do it for, like he broke
Got
up the
it.
unit economics, same way.
Understood.
And then it's all about building a relationship and understanding the platform. You can't list and assume sales. It's never going to happen.
And building a relationship with the person who represents their
Brand, yes, the
Right.
category level, which becomes tougher. Obviously,
Nice.
it happens with growth, with time. But even before that happens, you need to understand the platform in which you're selling. Right? You can't, every platform is not going to give you the same return.
So essentially your own website is sorted. We've got our strategy and everything sorted. Economics strategy is sorted. You've got the acquisition retention sorted by now, and then you're saying let's distribute now.
Marketplace.
And the marketplace is in the best optimal way possible.
Yeah.
Right.
You may realize that a marketplace for you, Amazon is working better than Flipkart, or Myntra is better than Ajio for your brand. For another brand, it could be Flipkart is better than Amazon. It doesn't matter, right? But you need to understand, and you need to understand each platform's operations also, which is a huge part of people don't realize, and that really hits your bottom line. So I think the whole marketplace, so we actually go through each part in terms of listing to performance marketing on a marketplace.
How to list on Amazon.
To all of this.
I'm a little shocked because I thought this would be more like a
to the extent of imagery
to like
as
a
well.
lower bird's eye view.
No, you have to give actionable points, no? Otherwise, it's
And
no point.
imagery as well. Like you have to have 7 images, 6 images in one video. What to put in each image.
Why it's important. And again, it comes back to brand. It has to represent your brand in every sense again. The 7th module, which I think is what I spent the most time and sleepless nights on personally, is operation. We live in a country where cash on delivery exists. It's not going away according to me anytime soon. There are payments may have increased in terms of prepaid orders, but it's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
Also, if you're a new customer, I think this is the best way to build your trust, to make sure that the second order is a prepaid order. It's about the customer experience that comes in. Every day delay in delivery is a higher chance that the customer is not going to accept it. If I offer a product, it's my job to get the customer the product.
How can you control this? I mean, you're always dependent on your fulfillment partners. You don't control the delivery experience so well.
Of course you do.
Oh, you
do it in many ways. By communicating with the customer so that the expectations are set.
Right.
That's number one. That's fully in your hands because the delivery partners give you this detail. If there's a delay, they tell you.
Wow.
Right? So that's number one. Number two, we manage the whole NDR or the non-delivery report by ourselves. So we didn't just trust the third party to do it. If someone said, like if you ordered a product and it said, oh, I'm not available today, send it tomorrow, I would make sure I call you to help you streamline that. Right? So that we improve your experience.
You're doing all of this at Dr. Vaidya?
100%. Number three, making sure that your courier partner is also accountable, because every courier partner gives you tax, right? Turnaround time from when they have to make that first attempt.
Yeah.
As a brand, you have made the promise to the customer. They have bought it from you. They don't care if you're using a Ship Rocket Delivery, Express B, Blue Dart.
You can't say, oh, उसने deliver नहीं किया, मैंने तो time से भेज दिया था. The worst argument I would ever hear from a responsible company.
And it's not, right? It's on you. And I think the bigger other way is, as long as I have a simple thing. Tomorrow, if a customer wants to speak to you on WhatsApp, email or call, at a time that they want, which is reasonable, I put that, not if it's up 4 a.m, reasonable time. It's your duty as a brand to be available to answer them when they want, not when you are free.
Where did you get this militant attitude towards customer centricity?
It's your customer
great.
makes and breaks
I wish
you.
more people had this.
Because the customer makes and breaks you. The reason you survive and the reason you build and the reason you grow is one thing, your customer.
See, I'll tell you, I think
there has to be some other drive behind it.
Lots of early stage founders get excited by orders they see on the Facebook or the Shopify dashboard, right? It's only half the battle won until the product reaches the customer, because the revenue is never realized until the product reaches the customer, right? And if, by the way, you get a prepaid order and you don't deliver, you're in deep trouble in this country.
Also, I think maybe it's coming from the fact that our customers are patients in many cases.
Yeah, that's true. And Dr. Vaidya, the customers are patients, right?
Interesting.
It was essential.
So that's what I used to keep reminding. If you have angry customers,
sometimes sir, product nahi gaya, it's not a big deal. Someone dependent
diabetes.
On this.
We had a customer in COVID send a doctor to come and collect the product, right?
Because that time the pass to roam around was not easy, right? But the doctor would have the pass. So
if they can do that,
family doctor was sent 30 kilometers away to get the product.
So if they can do that, it's our responsibility to be open and available for them, right? So I think operations is a big chunk, and what happens at times is brands realize too late when it is messed up their working capital, their returns.
Beautiful packaging and tastier products and something like that. And while the customers like time se to pahuncha dete, I left just after, like just before it arrived because you were too late. These things may seem like in data it seems like a blip. Mera average 1.5 days se 2 days hi to hua hai. But that's basically like the deal is off the table now.
Yeah. And if you are willing to deliver to a Northeast or a Jammu Kashmir, which we did, it's my responsibility to make sure it delivers there.
Makes sense.
If I offer, I deliver. That's the logic we have. So I think this is
it's essentially at the very core, like about telling people you're committed, telling people they can trust you.
They build your trust, right? Tomorrow, if I get an order to you in 2 days, 3 days, if I get an order to you in 7 to 10 days, the chances
to be a person of your word. It's simple as that. At the very core.
And the chances
I say I do this, I do this.
You have to build trust through a brand. You're a new brand. That's the truth. So that's number 7. And in all of them, there's accounts, right? Which I'm not even getting into.
Oh, but you do talk about accounts too.
Basics, yes,
Hardcore,
without overwhelming.
Every step I'm a little boggled, so please don't mind that.
But it's very important, right? To see it on a daily. And then I will leave it, the 8th one, to Arjun.
Yeah, and then I think to round up the entire experience, right? We say, okay, you've figured out all the basics. Now I think the 3 key levers that I talk about to end the cohort is team. Building a high quality team. What does a D2C sales and marketing team look like at each phase of business? Then culture, because as an organization scales, culture is really important to keep the organization motivated and the team to stay for a long period of time. And then this thing that I like to talk about called hyperscaling. Because D2C, if you do, Dr. Vaidya's journey from 0 to 50 orders a day was 2 years. Dr. Vaidya's journey from 50 to 5,000 orders a day was 2 years, right? So once you establish the POC, proof of concept, digital allows you the ability to do the same thing at 3x, 5x, 10x the speed and get there, right? So we ended with team, culture, hyperscale, and then with popular demand, I created a bonus module on fundraising. So what are the various jargon or terms that come into fundraising, whether it's like convertible note, Series A, valuation, deal construct, lead, follow, micro VC, angel, all of those things, and then sort of how to pitch, what are the things to keep in mind while pitching, what do you do after you complete a pitch, how do you keep engaging with investors. So it's the entire gamut.
Wow, I'm still absorbing that. I had no clue that you guys had gone into such detail. And,
it took 6 months to put this together.
That sounds very fast for this now. Like 6 months sounds like a full-time job.
Right?
It sounds like almost like a full-time job that you've given yourselves.
It was fresh when we wrote it, right? When we put it together, it was just fresh from our experience.
But I mean, even for you guys, this process of making it a course must be so enriching. Like the amount of clarity you would have, like, everything would click, but to have explicit frameworks and, articulation around it, what did that mean for you guys?
No, look, I think
how did that make you better in your next role?
Before we started teaching it large cohorts, we started with small cohorts. We did 2 or 3 cohorts of 20, 30 people. And we tested, we saw what was going right, what was going wrong, and then we scaled it up. I think what's enriching or rewarding is not putting it together. It's about hearing feedback back from people. We've got hundreds of people who've put up LinkedIn posts, sent us messages. Like I met a founder today who said, hey, like I did XYZ things and this is what my business looks like. This is what my catalog looks like. I'm 70% there with my brand. Can you connect me to someone? I met a founder in Bangalore 3 days ago who was at 10 lakh rupees a month when he joined our first cohort. He joined one of the small test cohorts. He's now doing 3 crores a month and he's raising a pre-series A round now. He's raising a pre-series A round now. So he came to pitch to me for that round. But it's proud, right? Proud moment. And he was speaking to one of my colleagues as well. And he was like, it all started when we did that cohort. So I think that's the enriching, rewarding part of what we do.
No, I can absolutely get that. Like you guys have spent this time to like meticulously design this course, and it's not easy. You got a chance to, in this process, also probably live back that journey. I'm genuinely at this point like overwhelmed with the fact that there is someone who's created this infinitely valuable resource. Like I really mean it when I say this. I think I can now have a sense of the depth that you guys have gone in, the rigor that you put in, and I don't have any plans to start a D2C, but I feel like taking this course. And I'll be the most meticulous one and people like, why the hell is this guy making these many notes? You have nothing to sell, dude.
We have an amazing student in the current cohort who asks, so we have Q&A every Saturday, 11 to 1 for the cohort. and pretty much half the Q&A is just his questions. And people stop asking questions.
I'm that guy in the course.
He's
By the way, I'm that guy
by the way,
always.
I'm
And people
gonna
like,
go,
you're not even getting grades for it. I'm like, okay, fine.
no, he's like, by the way, I'm going to go last, but I have 10 questions that I need to ask, right? And so he's like, if everyone finish, then I'm going to go with my whole list of
Got his
questions.
awareness in plus or
It's
place.
the perfect use of time.
No, it makes sense, and everyone else learns, right? Because questions, maybe he's already thought about it and they are not yet there in the business, but they get to learn from it.
If that guy is watching, like, I completely support this.
I
I've
completely
always
support
been the class's clown, okay? Not because I was clowning around, but I was always like this kid who was absolutely shameless in asking questions, right? And I don't understand, I ask. The rule was simple. You don't understand, you don't ask, your loss.
Your loss.
I've always had this.
There's
So
nothing
I'm
like a
that guy,
stupid question.
except I think I limit myself to 5. I like to do that. Okay, so we've like winded up the entire course, like, and we probably had like a
We couldn't do it in
30-minute
18 minutes. It took like 30-35 minutes.
You can do better next time. Okay, so I think this was honestly like a mind-opening exercise for me. That, especially in the context, I'll tell you where I'm coming from. We hear this constantly that, you know, धंधा सिर्फ करके समझ आता है. जिसने करा ही नहीं, ये किताबों से नहीं सीख सकते तुम, ये किसी डिग्री से नहीं सीख सकते. Is a narrative I've had, and I've had a certain degree of discomfort with this. Nobody's ever sold this idea, तुम कोर्स कर लो, तुम एक successful entrepreneur बन जाओगे. I don't think anybody's really sold that idea, right? It's a hypothetical thing to refute. And here we are talking about a very precisely defined framework and a very deeply like defined space of all the things one needs to think of while starting off a business specific to D2C. I can imagine, why can't this be done for every other business? Almost every other business for that matter. And yes, there is some X factor. Yes, there is some angle of timing. When did you start out, right? All of those things kept aside, there is a method to the madness. And that's what you guys are doing. You're saying there are 100 things you need to do. You don't need to struggle with 90. Let me take care of the 80 so that you can take care of the 10 or 20 remaining ones by yourself. That's you. That's your X factor. But you've taken that part out, systemized it. You've like made it into a format which is digestible. I think it's a remarkable achievement in itself. I can't imagine a better way to give back as, you know, founders who've now had a very successful journey now. I want to point out here, you said that these people are, you know, what you live for is, in a way, the feedback that you receive in, right? That is the kicker here. But now that you're leading a fund and you're also investing, both of you are investing, should we call it like evil vested interests? Like, no, there is gyan, but you know, if you need money, we're there.
Look, I think that my vested interest actually is even
with no qualms around it, like
it's even
cool,
deeper, right?
Yeah.
My vested interest is that when I was building a business, there was nobody to help.
Yeah.
I had all of these questions and I had no answers to those questions. So I went to Indore very recently for a startup summit, and I woke up at 5:45 a.m., got on a 7:30 a.m. flight to reach Indore at 8:15 on a Saturday, and someone asked me, why do you do this on weekends?
Yeah.
And I was like, look, if someone invites me to a conference in Bangalore, Bombay or Delhi, I know there's going to be a star-studded lineup. But in Indore, in Chandigarh, in Guwahati, where I have gone to speak in startup summits, there's not so many people who go, right? And so the reason we do all of this, the reason I go to any tier 2 or 3 city that invites me for startup summit is because we need to build an ecosystem in our country, right? We've had 100 plus unicorns, but we're still some way away from building a strong support system and startup ecosystem. And so our vested interest is that. Is if we can enable 500 people who can enable another 5 people each, who can enable another 5 people each, that's huge compounding, right?
No. I think your actions have spoken out this very well. I think I mean, I've seen so many people talk about their businesses and sharing their learnings. But then I think one thing that stands out most is that I see you as hyper approachable. You guys are super hyper approachable. I think I feel very comfortable. I'm like, okay, there is something, I just drop you a text. Maybe I don't even I might have a text where I haven't even said hi, Arjun. And I might have missed that out, but it's probably because I felt a degree of comfort and approachability, even though we've not been like childhood buddies, like not because of that, but you built that persona, you built that aura because you consciously have chosen to give back in this way, and you can't give back if you're too hard to reach. Simple as that. Okay, what was that moment?
I actually at times think it's too approachable so that he can't. So what happens is that the heart is in the right place, but then you can't physically. A person has so many hours in a day.
That's true.
Right? And so I feel like there has to be a certain balance of being too approachable either, because then some people get disappointed, some people get upset, and there are only so many hours in a day.
It's gold for others. It's gold for others, clearly. But there is a cost to it. How do you defend against this claim?
I think I would say that I genuinely like to be approachable because I wish that other people would be like that.
Yeah.
And there weren't as many people who are approachable with me. But the challenge is that I can't respond to everything, and so I just hope I don't leave people disappointed. That's the challenge.
People will get.
Please tell me you have an EA. I heard you guys say
I'm the EA.
No, this is not acceptable.
That's
then.
the truth.
You do need an EA.
It can't. I disagree. I don't think he can
If
have
I message you and the EA responds, will you feel okay?
No, so you have to define the framework of approachability.
So that I have to define then.
I have to do.
I'm not
if you have, that's what I overheard you guys. You have 600 damn messages on WhatsApp that you plan to finish off and mark them unread.
I know my Maldives 3 days is going to go in just clearing this up because it's going to be stuck in my brain now that there are 650, 400 WhatsApps.
Yeah, there is a serious conversation.
Just finish it.
So I'd like to, and we've had a phenomenal, glimpse into that something supposedly very uncertain as entrepreneurship can be made more certain with the use of right knowledge, right tools, right access to people, right, and so on. You guys just have had this shared journey. I want to talk about the two of you specifically now. It's not about your business anymore, but it's more about you two as partners, right? And I've personally been very curious. I would imagine to have a relationship like this where, I can sit right next to my partner and, plan not just like future in life, but let's build some stuff together. I'm that guy who's always up for let's build something together. I'm always collaborating with someone. Like I'm the guy people reach out to ki yaar, ye karne ja raha hu, to karna hai kya? They will always check with me. I'm that guy because they know I'm always up for this. And I would love to have that trait in my partner, right? I'm not asking for a friend. I'm not asking for a friend now. But I honestly think it seems from the outside a very difficult thing to balance. There is, and I've done my Quora searches and incognito searches on how do businesses work out when your spouse or your partner is your co-founder. I want to get a glimpse from you guys. How do you think of it? What is your paradigm around it? What areas have you struggled with? Give me a sense of that, because it seems like a very happy situation. I'm sure you have your meri vacation mat kharab karo wale problems too is evident. But it's I don't know if it's easy. Is it easy?
Yeah, look, I remember sitting on a beautiful, so one of my dad's school friends is from Sri Lanka, and his sister owns a beautiful hotel near Gaul called Kumu Beach, and we went in July. She had gifted us a trip there for our wedding.
Wow.
We went in July and we were the only guests in the hotel. So it's like a small 15-room hotel, but we're the only guests. So think about having a 15-room hotel to yourself. When we get there and something breaks, our server crashes or something like that.
That's happened.
Yeah, and it's happened, and we're sitting in this beautiful balcony in this hotel thinking, oh my God, there's so many things I would rather be doing than be on call with India for my 3-day trip that I'm here, right? So it's not easy.
Yeah.
I think the joy of building something with your partner for us was worth all the struggle that we went through. I think the good part is that when you're not building together, then one person may not understand exactly what the other person is going through, which we had. Work-life balance
You
is...
had an empathy that ran deeper
Yeah.
than just partners.
Yeah, but work-life balance is tough. It like people say you
You're
should
talking about work all the
cut
time,
off
right?
and all, but
Guilty of that.
but it doesn't happen. But I think it just like for us it was a beautiful experience because we just got engaged. Then she joined the business. We started building together. We got married while we were building the company.
Yeah.
We grew up while building this company. We sold the company together, and I think we grew as people with this company and with our startup journey. So for us, it was a very special experience.
Do you have like weekly chats about managing stuff and balancing them out?
Honestly, I think we were very honest with ourselves that we can't do work-life balance. It just doesn't work.
For both of you?
Yeah. And we were both open about it. And we, from our family, we would hear that a lot. And we were like, okay, we just can't. Like, better to not pretend to say that, okay, we can. We just couldn't do it, and we didn't. There were some days that I needed motivation. There were some days Arjun needed motivation. So that was also a good balance. We were very clear in dividing roles. So there was no questions. He had his departments, I had my departments. I had final say in mine, he has final say in his. There's no ego. The company is at the top. So we were very clear about that. I don't think it can kind of work. I think it either has to fully work, and some couples it just doesn't work as well, which is absolutely fine. It's also personality driven.
Yeah.
I think that genuinely, I believe, like after being on the journey, maybe with Arjun, if he had gone and done this and I hadn't and had probably worked for someone else and did a little bit more of a structured 9-to-5 job, I don't know how our marriage would have lasted in that sort of situation. Just because it does take a huge toll on yourself. And you can't understand it till you're in it, is the truth about it. I was a little bit more emotional, I think, you know, when Arjun decided to do Whirl Invest, and I just was like, wait, so we're not
going to be working separately now?
And they were very clear, because I think he probably, you know, that partners don't work together here. So in case they thought that we were gonna potentially ever.
Okay, fair
not
enough.
In a bad
Some companies
way.
early on.
Very early on, right? It's just a thing anyone says, right? Because we've worked together in the past. And I didn't even think about it, but in my brain it was always that we would start something together again. I think we're super lucky that we're in the same ecosystem though still.
Yeah.
So there's still a good amount
you have
of
a good overlap. Yeah.
But it took me some time to get used to the fact that Arjun's going to another office and I am in another space.
Okay.
Definitely took me some time to get used to that.
So tell me the best and worst for each of you. Best and worst of this setup. There has to be something really hard about it.
I would say the best part was actually celebrating achievements together.
Is it?
It was just amazing. Just whatever we did, cutting a cake at the office, like talking about milestones, getting things done. I think that feeling of accomplishing things together was the best. The worst was like the Sri Lanka experience. Or like, for example, I was at my wedding.
Your time was never your time. It was company's time, kind
Yeah,
of. You were basically billing the company on constantly.
I remember my factory lost electricity while I was in a puja prior to my wedding. And I was sitting in that puja saying, I really don't want to be here right now. So I think that's tough.
Wow.
I think best thing was actually building something together, right? Like actually having something.
You cherish that.
I really cherish that. I think that for me was definitely a huge highlight. And obviously doing it with Arjun, I think that was the biggest highlight. I think the worst thing is that, for 4.5 years, because our marriage, because our this, everything was business, Dr. Vaidya's. None of us could pull any of us out of it, right? So that became a bit of an obsession. So we did let go of maybe many other family, social things, in all honesty. So you can say sacrifice in some sense of that. I mean, I think it was worth it, but if you ask me, but I do think that that's it. Because at times, like, you don't like, we didn't have a honeymoon, you know, smaller things like that also. We didn't even go, like, even when we did go for like a little holiday, like he mentioned, work was always there. So those things do tire you out as well. So I think, yeah, that would be my.
Wow, amazing. And you know, you guys were sharing this before, and I would like to share this, that I had assumed that after the exit, you might have found your leisure time, vacation time for at least a few months. I'm that guy. I'm like, मैं 3 महीने काम नहीं कर रहा अभी. I'm not doing anything. I'm just chilling, and I've done that before, and that's what you told me, that hey, listen, I technically haven't had a vacation right after that. You guys went for a small little honeymoonish thing, whatever.
4 days.
4 days while you were in Gaul.
6 days. No, that was Maldives.
That was
Maldives
Maldives.
only.
Okay.
Maldives only
You
place
went
we go.
there, and now you're going for almost a second vacation in these 2 years.
Yeah, I think
Effectively,
just
or third
after,
one?
Just after we sold the business last year, we went for a
Right.
vacation to the Maldives for 8 days. Post that, we actually didn't really have a.
That's what I
Yeah.
told him.
We didn't really have it, so it's 1.5 years now.
So, I mean, people who are watching that, ऐसा है कि after the exit, basically founders are sipping margarita on the beach. Here are counter examples. That's not it. These guys have no sense of when to relax and when to chill, clearly. So, but that says a lot about, you know, your commitment and passion about this space. Right? You should broadcast this one. छुट्टी भी नहीं लेता. देखो D2C वालों. So we have the right to say, like, brag. मैं तो करने वाला हूँ brag. If I'm in that position, for sure, I'm going to brag the shit out of it. So no, this is amazing. I think this is honestly like a super duper fun one for me. I think in terms of value and in terms of the value that I got at the end of it, I think I saw that, I could see that you were, this building together is such a thing for you guys that you cherish doing, and that has only further deepened your trust, right? I can see that it's very evidently visible in this particular camera. We have shots of you guys looking one after the other, each at each other with such puppy eyes. So I'm going to point that out too. Like, इतना प्यार से देख रहे थे ना. I'm not. So that's going to come out too. Yeah, it's like almost like PD. So I'm glad that we had this conversation, and
No, thank you for having us.
Thank
It's
you
been a
so much
pleasure.
for having us.
you guys are having me technically until
It's your home, right?
Is it?
Ah, that's what he said.
I do have extra pajamas.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we've had a phenomenal conversation, and you know, again, as a formal thing, thank you so much.
Our
Thank
pleasure.
you.
This was wonderful.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Okay, so again, guys, this was Coffee and Starters. I'm Nivedan, and these are our guests, Arjun Vaidya and Trisha Vaidya. And we, as you witnessed, we had a phenomenal conversation here. I'm sitting here at their home, not had dinner, and and I'm honestly looking forward to all the possible things that are going to come up in your lives. I'm also sitting here making a newer kind of setup. I'm super duper excited. I get to do that with you guys.
Thank you.
Super.
This matters a lot to me as well at a very personal level.
No, our pleasure.
I mean, I asked you, can I come and can we do a podcast? And I got a pretty quick revert and like, let's do it. Like, that's the response I got, right? And it's very rare. Let me put that out again. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.